Every single person who has ever built something meaningful went through a phase where they almost didn't. Not because they lacked talent, not because the opportunity wasn't there, because they sat too long inside their own head, second-guessing, replaying, rehearsing conversations that never happened, preparing for versions of failure that never came. And while they were doing all of that, someone with half their ability and twice their audacity simply moved. That is the quiet tragedy of overthinking. It is not loud, it does not announce itself as self-destruction. It arrives dressed as preparation and caution and responsibility, and it steals years. I've been studying what separates people who stay stuck in the planning phase from people who actually execute, and the difference is rarely skill. It is almost always psychology. So today, I'm going to give you the psychological strategies that I personally use and that I've watched transform the way people relate to their own ability. Not theories borrowed from textbooks, real frameworks for getting out of your head and into the work, even on the days when doubt is screaming the loudest. If you want this kind of direct, practical thinking delivered consistently, subscribe to Elevate Your Daily right now. This is exactly the level we operate at, every single time. Welcome in. Genuinely glad you're here today because this topic is one I care about deeply, not just intellectually, but personally. So let's skip the small talk and get straight into it. No padding, no filler, just the real thing. I want to be honest with you about something. There was an 18-month stretch of my life where I had a clear idea, genuine capability, and absolutely nothing to show for either. Every morning I would think about the project, plan it, adjust the plan, research more, convince myself I needed one more piece of information before I could start. I've realized looking back that I was not being thorough, I was being terrified. And the terrifying part was how productive the avoidance felt. I had notebooks full of plans, I had research folders, I had everything except the one thing that mattered: action. What broke the cycle wasn't a motivational video or a new productivity system. It was the moment I understood that no amount of preparation eliminates uncertainty, and that waiting for certainty before moving is just fear wearing a suit. Your brain lies to you when the stakes feel high. Learn to recognize it. The first strategy is awareness, and it sounds simple until you actually try to apply it in real time. What I've noticed is that the mind under pressure becomes an extraordinarily convincing liar. It generates reasons to wait that feel completely rational. You're not ready yet. Now isn't the right time. What if it doesn't work? What will people think? I've learned that these thoughts are not analysis, they are protection mechanisms. Your brain is wired to conserve energy and avoid risk, which was useful when risk meant a predator. It is not useful when risk means posting the video or sending the proposal or starting the business. The moment you learn to label that voice accurately, not as wisdom, but as fear in disguise, you create a gap between the thought and the response. And in that gap is where your real choice lives. Stop waiting to feel ready. Readiness is built through action, not before it. Here is something I believe so deeply it almost frustrates me when I see people waiting on it. Readiness is not a feeling that arrives before you start. It is a feeling that gets built by starting. I've experienced this so clearly and so many times that it no longer surprises me, but it still excites me. Every time I have done something before I felt fully ready, the act of doing it produced a level of clarity and capability that no amount of preparation could have given me. Think about the first time you drove a car. No amount of reading the manual would have taught you how to actually feel the road. The doing was the teacher. Your skill is the same. You do not discover what you're capable of by thinking about it. You discover it by deploying it, imperfectly, incompletely, before you feel ready, and letting the experience close the gap. Shrink the action until resistance disappears. This is a psychological strategy I come back to constantly, and I've watched it work for people who are completely paralyzed by a goal. The strategy is simple. If you cannot make yourself do the thing, you have made the thing too big. Shrink it. Not the goal, the next action. A person who cannot commit to a 1-hour workout can usually put on their shoes. What I've come to understand is that resistance is not about effort, it is about perceived enormity. When the action feels enormous, the brain braces. When it feels small, the brain allows. And here is the beautiful part. Once you start, momentum builds naturally. The shoe putting on becomes a walk, the walk becomes a run, the one sentence becomes a paragraph. Motion creates motivation, not the other way around. Compare yourself to who you were last month, not to where others are. I've grown to see that comparison is one of the most effective motivation killers in existence, and social media has turned it into a constant, ambient experience. You scroll for 3 minutes and you've already subconsciously measured your chapter 1 against someone else's chapter 20. From my point of view, this is not just unhelpful, it's genuinely irrational. You are comparing your internal experience, full of doubt and uncertainty and behind-the-scenes struggle, to someone else's external presentation, curated and filtered and stripped of every hard moment. I've realized the only comparison that produces growth is the one between who you were last month and who you are today. That comparison is honest, that comparison is actionable, and that comparison, done consistently, shows you something motivating, that you are actually moving even when it does not feel like it. Trust is built through reps, not revelations. The last strategy is the one I wish I had genuinely internalized earlier, because it would have saved me enormous amounts of wasted anxiety. Self-trust does not arrive as an epiphany, it accumulates as evidence. Every small commitment you make to yourself and keep, every time you said you would do the hard thing and you did, deposits into an internal account. And over time, that account grows into something unshakable. I've noticed that the people who seem effortlessly confident are rarely people who were born that way. They are people who have been making and keeping small promises to themselves for so long that doubt simply has less surface area to attach to. Start small, keep the promise, repeat. That is the entire formula for self-trust. And self-trust, once built, makes overthinking almost impossible because the evidence of your capability is louder than the voice of your fear. In my opinion, I've realized that overthinking is not an intelligence problem, and it's not a motivation problem, it's a relationship problem. Specifically, a broken relationship between you and your own ability. Somewhere along the way, most people stopped trusting themselves. Maybe it was a failure that landed harder than expected. Maybe it was criticism that arrived before confidence had a chance to root. Maybe it was just years of waiting for permission that nobody ever came to give. From where I honestly stand, I've come to understand that rebuilding that trust is the actual work. Not the strategy, not the productivity system, not the perfect morning routine. The work is learning to take your own side again. To look at what you have already survived, already figured out, already built, and let that be enough proof to take the next step. So here's what I want to leave you with today. The overthinking is not protecting you, it is costing you. Every day spent inside your head rehearsing instead of doing is a day the skill goes undeployed, the idea goes untested, the version of you that you actually want to become waits one more day to exist. You already have more than enough to begin. The only question left is whether you are finally going to believe that. Start today. Messy, imperfect, uncertain, just start. The version of you that trusts themselves completely is built one action at a time, and that first action is waiting on you right now.